Creating these classes requires equipment and services that cost money. If you appreciate this education, please think about going to elithecomputerguy.com and offering a one-time or monthly recurring donation. Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli, the Computer Guy, and in today's class, I'm going to show you how to create an HTML form so that you can search through your records in your MySQL database tables. So before, I showed you how to create an HTML form that allows you to insert records into your tables. Now we're going to use a form so that you can search through those records. Essentially, what we're going to do is we're going to create a form that will allow you to input whatever it is you're looking for. That will then pass the information to a PHP script. That PHP script will then go. It'll search through your MySQL database table, and then you will then print out the results that match your query to a basic HTML screen. I will tell you what I'm going to be showing to you today is ugly as hell. It's gotta be ugly. It's gotta be ugly. I would not suggest you handing this over to a user, but I do want to show you basically how you're able to use HTML, PHP, and MySQL to now be able to search through records and then be able to present a result in a web browser. So the big concept to keep your eye on today when I'm showing you how to create the HTML form and be able to do the search functionality with PHP is to be looking at the wildcard functionality. So normally when we've been searching through our MySQL database tables, we've been doing, select all from whatever the table is, where column name equals something. Right? When you use equals something, basically the only results that are going to pop up are the results that exactly equal whatever you've plugged in there. So if you type in, let's say Bob, only results that are Bob will show up. You won't get Bob as in Bobby as in B-O-B-B-Y. You won't get Bobby as in B-O-B-B-I-E, right? So that's one of the things when you're thinking about creating a search form, people aren't always sure exactly what they're searching for. So they want to be able to type in a little bit of a snippet and then have any results that match that snippet show up. So again, when you do the normal select all from, table name, where column name equals, you run into the problem where it will only pop up with the exact match for whatever you've plugged in there. So what we're going to be using today is wildcards. So we're going to be using the percentage sign wildcard. So basically what the percentage sign wildcard means is anything, any amount, and any whatever, right? So you see this a lot like with asterisks in some coding languages where you can put in asterisks and then again, like anything that matches whatever the middle bit is, that will then show up. Well, basically with the percentage signs, you get the same thing. So instead of saying equals, so select all from table where, let's say name equals Bob, what we're gonna do is we're gonna say where name like. So we're going to take out the equals. We're going to say like, and then we're going to put the variable, but then we're going to put percentage signs on either side. So basically, it's going to say where anything is like. We give the variable name. So the variable with any match in front and any match behind, and it will print out the results. So with this, when you use like, if I simply put in B-O-B, then Bob will show up, and Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y will show up, and B-O-B-B-I-E will show up, right? So basically anything that has that Bob in the middle, that will show up. One of the examples that I'll show you is with Jimmy and Timmy. So I have some Timmys and I have a Jimmy, right? So I can put in I-M-M-Y, and since I have that percentage sign in the beginning, then the results that'll pop up is Timmy will pop up and Jimmy will pop up, and basically any names with I-M-M-Y will pop up. So this is one of the values of wildcards, and so it's something that you need to be thinking about when you're creating search forms, is because people will not know exactly what to plug in. Again, if you're thinking about a name, making sure you don't misspell it, making sure you know enough, is it 2 B's or 1 B, is it I-E or is it Y, things like that. If you can just plug in a little bit of a snippet of whatever word you're looking for, then you can get all the results and then go, oh yeah, that's the one that I'm looking for. That's the value of wildcards. And so wildcards use like. So instead of equal, you use like, and then again, like I said, we're going to use a percentage sign in the beginning, percentage sign at the end. So that will show us basically, we give the snippet with any any result that has anything in front of that snippet and any result that has anything behind that snippet, that will show up in the results that I'm going to be showing you. There's no real warnings for today. Again, usually when we're dealing with MySQL databases, there's a whole bunch of warnings where you could really screw something up. Since we're simply doing select statements today, there's nothing that you should really be able to destroy. Should! There's nothing you should be able to destroy, though. With you folks, who the hell knows what you're going to do? The main thing that I would say for the warning today is mainly that you should look at what I'm doing, look at the demonstrations that I'm giving you, and then start to play with these things yourselves. Again, one of the big problems in the programming world is that people try to do everything paint by numbers, right? Okay, I do this, and then I do this, and I do this, and I do this, and this gives me a specific thing, right? Well, one of the things in the coding world to realize is you're more dealing with things like bricks. I'm basically giving you bricks, and then you can build the bricks. You can build whatever you want. Like I show you how to put bricks together, and then you can make a wall, or you can make a building, or you can make a septic tank, right? There's a lot of different things that you can do with bricks. So what I want you to be thinking about today is with the things that I'm showing you to do. Again, now that you have the HTML form, now that you have the PHP script, now that you have the MySQL database and tables, start looking at what I'm doing and then start playing around with your own configurations. Create your own tables, create your own, small little projects, see what works, see what doesn't work. And I think that's going to be one of the big things that you should take away from today is don't look at what I'm doing today as an exact model of what you should exactly try to replicate. Take away, these are things that I can do, and then start playing and seeing what you're able to come up with yourself. So now that we have that out of the way, we're going to go over to the computer. So I'm going to show you the demonstrations today. We're actually going to have two demonstrations today. The first is where we're basically going to create a simple search box that will search through names within the students table that we have been using for previous projects. So we have a students table. The students table has a student name, it has an age, it has a gender, it has a uniform. So the first project that we're going to do today is that we are simply going to search through the names and then simply print out the results that match with whatever name that we have plugged in. The second example that I'm going to show you today is where we're then going to add an option box and tell the search form what column we want to search. So the first demonstration that we're going to do is all it's going to do is search through the name. So we're going to hard code the column name into the code that we've created, and we'll only search through the name column. What we're going to be doing for this second project, though, is we're going to have an option box, and in that option box is going to ask, do you want to search through the name column? Do you want to search through the age column? Or do you want to search through the gender column, right? So I could simply plug in, let's say, girl into the search box, then select gender, and then it will search through the gender column, and any gender that matches with girl, it will print that result. Or if I want to do age, I will plug in, the age, let's say 12, into the age column, or into the search box. Then I will select the age column, and then any record that matches 12 for the age that will show up. So those are the two projects that we're going to do today. And with that, let's go over to the computer, and I can show you how this works. So here we are at my demonstration system, the exact same demonstration system I always use, but if you're new here, I'm using Ubuntu Desktop 18.04 LTS. Again, you should be able to use any Ubuntu desktop, and what I'm showing you today will work. I have that running within a virtual machine in VirtualBox, and I have this on my MacBook Pro. The Ubuntu Desktop 18.04, I did use something called Task Cell in order to install the entire LAMP stack, so Apache, MySQL, and PHP is installed on this system. They are all at their default. I have not configured php.ini. I have not modified vhost. It's all just the standard configuration. The only thing that I've done at all is in the Apache root directory, I created a folder called PHP simply to dump all of these PHP example scripts and have them in one place. As far as the editor that I'm using for the code today, I'm simply using gedit. This is just a basic, really crappy editor, the equivalent of text edit on Mac or Notepad within Windows. Again, when I am doing small projects, I like using crappy little text editors because it makes it simple for you folks to realize, oh, you don't need a fancy IDE. You don't need some kind of fancy editor in order to create the scripts that I'm showing you today. So with that, let's go over, as always, and take a look at our MySQL database to make sure we know what's going on there. So you go down, you do the little click on the things down the bottom. In the search, we go to terminal. And so basically we get to our terminal, right? We're going to log in. So we're going to do MySQL space -u. Username is Bob space -p for the password. That's for the password. Super secret 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're going to hit enter. We're now in our MySQL database. Show databases, just to make sure we know what databases we're dealing with. The database that we care about today is this class DB. So then we're going to go into class DB. So we do use class DB, semicolon, of course. We're now in that database. We're going to do show tables, so we know what tables that we're dealing with. We take a look, and again, we've been doing lots of demonstrations. We have lots of tables. The table that we care about today is students. Again, the reason that I go through this every time is when we are writing code, the computer cannot guess at what you mean. The computer is not your mommy, right? Your mommy, if you ask your mom for something and it's not quite right, your mom will try to figure out what you mean. A computer is not your mom. If you plug in the wrong word, it's just gonna fail, right? So again, simple things like, is the table named student or is it named students, right? If you misspell something like a table name, that can be a real problem. So the table that we care about today, though, is students. That's what we're gonna be searching through. So we can use describe, DESC, students, verify what the schema of this table looks like. And so for the schema of this table, we have name, age, gender, and uniform. So these are the column names. We also have student ID up here. Student ID is the primary key, and it's the auto increment. Basically, all I use a student ID for is so I have an absolutely unique field for every single record. So even if the names are the same, even if the ages are the same, even if the sex is the same, at least the student ID will be different so that you don't run into major problems. Other than that, again, we take a look at name. That is a text. We look at age. That's an int. Look at gender. That's a text. And we look at uniform, that's a text. Today, the fields that I'm going to be dealing with, what I care about is name, age, and gender. Past that, just to make sure there are records, we're going to do select all from students, just to see what the records look like, semicolon. And okay, so we can see that we have got a lot of records in here. It's kind of a mess. Again, it's kind of, we got Bobby, Sue, Lucy, we got all kinds of different ages, we got different genders, we got different uniforms thing. The main thing that I'm looking here for is that I do have 19 records here, so I have something to play with. Again, you don't want to run into a problem where your search form isn't working because you have no records to search against. But anyways, so we now all know this is here. So let's go and take a look at the first HTML form that we're going to be dealing with. So I have created a form called search.html. And if we look here, again, this is a very, 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 very basic HTML form. So we're going to open up with an HTML tag. Then we are going to go to the body. So we're going to open up with a body tag. We are then going to go down to the form. So we open with a form tag. We give it an action. That action is then going to pass the information that we collect here to PHP, uppercase S, so search.php. So whatever information I gather here, this is going to be sent to this particular script. The method is post. So there is post and there is get. Again, these are simple classes, so we're just going to use post. You can figure out get later. From that, we are simply going to have one field. We're simply only going to have one field. That field, we're just going to have a label called search. The input type is going to be text, and then the name, so that we can grab the value and turn that into a variable in the PHP script. This is how we identify this information. We're going to call it search. We're then going to break. Below that, we're going to have an input type of submit. So basically, this is simply going to be a submit button. We are going to close our form. We're going to close our body, and we're going to close our HTML. If we go over and take a look at what that just physically looks like, we go to 127.0.0.1 / that PHP folder that I talked about before, / search.html, hit enter, and so that's what this looks like, right? So again, we've got a horribly ugly simple form. So here's the search, right? So we got search here, search. Here's the text box. There's the text box. Here's a submit button here, and here's a submit button. So this is simply what this looks like. It is, yeah, really ugly. From that, we are then going to go and take a look at the PHP script. So this is what actually gets interesting. So PHP, uppercase S for search.php. So we go over here and take a look at this script. This is what we have. Right? And it looks very similar to what we've had before. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to open up the PHP script. Then from that, what we have to do is we have to create a variable and set the value to that variable. So we're going to create a variable called $search. So basically just what the search result is. We're going to make that equal to, and then $_post. And then you do single quotation mark here, the single quotation mark, and then simply the name, so search. So this right here, that references this. So whatever the hell name you give this text box, you can make a search, you can call it Billy Bo Bob. I don't care what you call it. Whatever this name is, that has to be this, right? This is where we create a PHP variable and we set the value to whatever the name is from that post. So then we're going to go down and we're going to do our basic connections like we always have. So we have $server name, username, password, database, same thing we've done for the past who knows how many classes. Again, we're connecting to the local host because our MySQL database server is on the exact same machine as the Apache web server. Username and password. So the username, again, at this point, you want a root level user so that you don't run into permission issues. We have that username Bob. So Bob 123456 as a password. Then we have the database here. And again, as I showed you, there's that class DB. Then we have to create the variable for the connection. So the actual connection to the database. We're going to make this a new MySQL I, same thing we've done in the past. We pass the value of server name, pass the value of username, pass the value of password, pass the value of the database, so we know what the hell we're connecting to, close parentheses, and semicolon. Then what we're going to go down here is the whole if it fails. So basically we're going to use the connection. And if there's a connection error, so for some reason it failed, it'll kill the attempt to connect. It'll print out connection failed, and then it concatenates. The period is in concatenation. Concatenates on whatever the error is. Again, close parentheses, close semicolon, close bracket. So if the connection fails for some reason, it will spit out an error. If not, it will keep on going, and that's what we care about. So now we get to the cool new stuff. So the new thing that we have today is, so we have the variable for our SQL statement. So $SQL equals, and then we plug in the SQL statement that we want to use. So what we're going to do is, this looks very similar to the select statements we've been doing in the past. So we have select, so select all. So again, you could plug in specific column names if you want to. I'm using all just to make life easier for you. From, and then we say whatever table we're going to be selecting from. So we're selecting from the students table. So where, and then we put name, right? So where the name column. So again, in the database here, DESC students. So we have a name table there, or a name column there. So where the name column, and then we're going to do like. So instead of equal, we're going to do like. Then we do single quotation mark. And then what we're going to have here is, these are the wildcards, right? So here's the percentage sign, and here's the percentage sign. And then within those two percentage signs, we're going to have the value for the variable search. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to plug in the value for the variable, whatever we plugged in, like Bob, B-O-B, and then anything that has Bob in it, right? So Bobby, Robert, anything, Robert, Bob. Anyways, anything that has Bob in it will show up, right? And so these are the wildcards. So the important thing is make sure you put the single quotation marks. Then you put the wildcard. So basically anything with this in the middle will be searched for. Then you close a single quotation mark here, and then you close the double quotation mark. So do remember to close both the quotation marks, and then we do semicolon. So this is the SQL statement that we'll be using. And again, this is where we use wildcard. So where name like, That's where we plug it in. Then we're going to come down here. We're going to create a variable result. So $result and $result equals connection, query, and then whatever the SQL statement is. All right, so SQL statement, this will create the value for result. So if result, number of rows, is greater than 0, so basically if when you plug this in, you get more results than 0, then what you're going to do is you go through a simple while loop. While, $row equals $result, fetch association. So this is going to go through, it's going to fetch the record, turn the record into an array, and then we're going to echo out that array. We're going to actually print out on the screen whatever we want to print out. So all I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be printing the value of name in the array. So $row, name. So whatever is in the name column, that will get printed out. Then period concatenates, and what I'm simply doing is concatenating a couple of spaces here. So concatenate a couple of spaces with those double quotation marks and concatenate. Then I'm going to print out whatever the value of age is. Then I'm going to do period, add a couple of spaces, period. Then I'm going to print out whatever the value of gender is. So you can plug in whatever you want here. If all you want's the name, you could simply print out the name. If all you want's the age, you could simply print out the age. If you wanted the student ID, the name, the age, and the uniform, you could print that out. All you have to do in order to print out is you do this $row. So that's created up here in this while loop. And then whatever the column name is, that's what you plug in between the brackets. Then we concatenate on, and then we have a break. So this will break the records into multiple lines. Else, so basically else, if there are no records. So here, if the result, number of rows, is greater than 0, go through the while loop. Else, if there's not, then you just simply echo out 0 records. Then we close a couple of brackets here, and then we simply close the connection. So $con is the connection that we created here, and then we're going to simply close, and then we are going to close the PHP script. And so that's what we're dealing with. The big thing here that we're going to be dealing with today is this particular SQL query where we're using like, and then here, this is where we print out all the records that match whatever we put into this SQL statement here. From here, we can then go back to this little search form that we have. Again, search.html. And so again, what I can do is I can simply type in, let's say, Bob. Then I hit submit. And so this is, we get Bobby here. So within the records, we have Bobby, who's a 12-year-old boy. We also have a Bob, who's a 55-year-old boy. We also have a Bob, who's a 12-year-old female. So any record with Bob in it showed up. So again, if we go back over and we take a look at the actual MySQL table, let's do select all from students. See what we got here. So let's say we got Timmy's. So we got Timmy's. Let's say MMY, right? So let's say we're thinking like, oh, is it Timmy or is it Jimmy? I'm not sure. I could go here, and again, I could do IMMY, right? Because I don't know if it's Timmy, I don't know if it's Jimmy. I hit the submit query. Okay, so I've got a Timmy, 8 years old, is a boy. I've got a Jimmy, who's 11 years old, boy. Oh, it's not Timmy, it's Jimmy. That's the 11-year-old. And then I got some of this other crap here. You know, Timmy is a 23-year-old girl, whatever. Basically, whatever records are in there, it prints all of this out. So this is a basic, simple search form for you. Again, and this allows you to go through and simply search for something like a name, like a student's name. So past that, let's go over and take a look at kind of the improved version of this. And so this is search with an option box. This is what we're going to do. We're going to be able to plug in a query, basically plug in what we're going to be searching for. But then we get to say, do we want to search for that in the name column? Do we want to search for that in the age column? Or do we want to search for that in the gender column? Maybe I'm just looking for 12-year-olds, or maybe I'm just looking for girls, whatever. Right? That's all it is. Take a look at this. So it's called search option.html. Again, it's a different form. We open up the HTML, we open up the body, we open up the form. Here, the action is then going to be pointed at a script called PHP search option.php. So again, remember when you're doing this, Remember to actually modify the action to whatever script you want it pointed to. I can tell you, as somebody who screws around with a lot of code, it's really frustrating to sit there and edit the hell out of a particular script and then come up with mistakes because you forgot to reference the right script in the form. Right? So just one of those things to think about. So we're going to be sending this data to the PHP search option.php script. Method, as we have before, is post. Past that, we have the same search box that we had before. So search, input type equals text, name equals search. So basically when we reference this in the PHP script, we're going to be grabbing the value, we're going to be calling it search. The next thing that we're going to have here though is we're going to create an option box. We're going to call this column. So basically what column do we want to be searching from? This is simply going to print out that on the screen. We're going to create a select box. We're going to make the name of that column. So when we reference this, we're going to be referencing the name column. The first option value, the value is going to be name, and then it'll simply print out name on the screen. Option value age, prints out age on the screen. Option value gender, prints out gender on the screen. Then we're going to close the option box, and then we're going to break. Then we're going to put the submit button there. We're going to close the form, we're going to close the body, and we're going to close HTML. So if we go over, again, we go to our thing, we do search, option this time, .html, and so this is what this looks like, right? So basically we got the search box here, search as we had before with whatever in there. We have column, so that's this here, and then it defaults to name, so I can put a name, or I can select age, or I could select gender, and then I can submit query. So I plug in something here, and then this is where I say what column I want to search with that. So let's go over and take a look at the PHP search option.php script. So this looks a lot like what we had before. It's almost identical. The only difference here, there's a couple of differences, is up here when we're creating the variables from that post, we're going to create a $ column variable, and we're going to set that to the value of whatever the name, whatever is in the column name, right? So again here, so the name column. And so if it's set to name, it'll pass name. If it's set to age, it'll pass age. If it's set to gender, it'll pass gender, right? So do remember, so this right here is what prints out on the HTML screen, right? So we're looking here, uppercase N, A-M-E, uppercase A, age, uppercase G, gender, right? This here is what prints on the form. This is what actually gets sent. So if you're going to use this as a specific variable name for something like the column, you want this to be identical to whatever's in your MySQL database, right? So again, this is important when we think about capitalization, and this is one thing that can screw people up, is what is being displayed to the user doesn't have to be the same as what actually gets passed in the script. So name in the MySQL database table is all lowercase, age is all lowercase, gender is all lowercase. So here, when you pass this value here has to be identical to this value here, if that makes sense. Then we're going to go over, and here, again, we're going to connect to the server as we did before. We're going to create the connection as we did before. We're going to set if the connection fails as we did before. Then what we're going to do is we're going to simply come down here to the SQL statement, the $SQL, and basically it looks identical to what we had before. The only difference is in the where, we simply reference where the value for $ column, right? So again, for PHP search here, so where name, so we hard coded the column name there. All we're doing with this particular script is we're simply saying whatever the value is of this variable, that's the column that we want to search in. Then like, as we did before, again, we have these wildcards in the front and the back of whatever we're searching for, and then $search, so the value of what we're searching. Then we come down here, again, everything else is the same. So the difference here is where the value for $ column, that's the difference. If we go, then we can start plugging things in. So let's say we do Bob, just like we did before, and then we can do name, we submit query, and so we get the same thing. But we can go back here, and let's say we plug in boy, and then we go down to gender, and we hit submit query. Now it prints out all the boys. So Bobby, Freddie, Timmy, Jimmy, Bobby, Dimmy, Mark. right? So it prints out all the boys. Or we could do age. Let's say we want to know the 12-year-olds. I go to age, then I submit query. Now it shows me the 12-year-olds. I have a Bobby 12 who's a boy and a Bob 12 who's a female, right? I go in. Oh, we got an 11-year-olds. Okay, we got a Jimmy who's an 11-year-old boy and Amanda who's an 11-year-old girl, right? And so this gives us a little bit more functionality of our search forms. And so this starts giving you a way so your users are able to actually go through and be able to do searches within your MySQL database tables. So there you go. Now you know how to create an HTML form so that you can search through your MySQL database tables in order to pull up the records that you're looking for. So now you can search, again, you can search based off of age, you can search off of gender, you can search off of name. Obviously, you can create your own tables, create your own search forms based off of whatever it is that you care about. But this is something that is actually useful for you. What I would say with the projects that I'm showing you is remember, copy, paste is your friend. So in the doodles and down in the notes, there is all of this code. I would recommend that you copy, paste the code, and then, like I say, play around with it. See what you're able to do. Everything that I'm showing you today and in many of these classes is very ugly. We're not using CSS. I'm not putting in a lot of formatting or anything like that because I want you to get the basic concept of HTML, PHP, and MySQL without getting into the weeds. So one of the things to be thinking about is, again, how can you make those results prettier? How can you make those results more useful? Again, one of the big problems with technical people is that they create products that work, that function is probably the better word. They create products that function, but that are just horrible to use. So again, like when you're thinking about printing out a record, you can simply print out text like I did on different lines, but as you can see, it's not spaced very well. It's kind of hard to read. So something you can think about is, okay, well, maybe when I print this out, also add the coding to create a table in HTML. And if you're going to do that, maybe add some color, maybe change the font size, play around with it a little bit. So not only are you providing the technical, the functional results to the end user, but you're actually providing the results in a way that is easy for the end user to understand. Again, as always, I have some old timers out there that are complaining that the way that I'm showing you how to create these little PHP scripts and interact with the MySQL database is not a good way to create code for production environment. And as I will say again and again, I agree. What I am showing you today has piss poor security. Again, doesn't have very good formatting. What I'm showing you, I would not put into a production environment, but this shows you how to start doing these things. And then once you understand how easy it is, then you can start adding security. Again, you can start looking at creating privileges for user accounts, using the proper privileges, and trying to tighten everything down to actually make it more secure. So I do want to say what I'm showing you in these classes, I would not duct tape this together and throw it out in the production environment. This is horribly vulnerable from a security standpoint, but it's useful to show you how this works. And then once you feel comfortable here, then you can start tightening things down and actually making the security worthwhile. So as always, I enjoyed doing this class and look forward to seeing you at the next one. Apparently, the type of content you just saw is not what Susan W. wants for the future of YouTube. This means that recommendations by YouTube to this channel have dropped massively and views are becoming comically small. I hate to ask. I used to say I would never ask, but if you could subscribe, like, comment, and most importantly, share the videos that you appreciate, that may help slow the death of this channel. Do remember that if anything at all happens to this channel, you can go to EliTheComputerGuy.com to view the content and access information not available on YouTube.